Hello, hello, my customer success friends and everybody in the business industry. Today, we're going to have another episode of CSM Practice, your podcast for anything related to customer success, from strategies to tactics. And today, it's no other. But today, we're going to dive into how do you take care of your long tail customer base in a scalable way, but also a smart way. Some of you have already heard of dynamic segmentations, pooled models. But today we're going to talk about how do you combine both, add little bit more sprinkle of love, and get yourselves a scaled CS motion that's kind of like a hybrid CS. And we call those portfolio success managers. And I actually have a senior scaled success manager from Zendesk to tell us about how his role is like. What does he do? What does it mean to be a scaled CS? What does it mean to have a pooled model with a little bit more zhuzh into it? And what does it open up for him, for his customers? How do they assign customers? How do they make sure that they get what they need? How do they prioritize accounts? Vitor, Meira, how are you? Thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, Irit. Thanks for having me. I am super excited for your invite.
Maybe you can share with everyone, what is a portfolio success manager?
A portfolio customer success manager is a CSM responsible to manage large portfolios of customers. So it means that we have to talk to 200, 250 accounts. So this is like the size of our book of business and rely on data to prioritize the engagements based on risk and potential of growth.
You said you had anywhere between 200 to 250. Are those assigned accounts? Do those rotate with dynamic segmentation?
Zendesk does operate on dynamic segmentation. So each quarter, Zendesk looks at the customer base and they define which accounts should have a scaled CSM or not based on risk and a model that they define. So every quarter I have some changes in not only me, all the portfolio CSMs, they have some changes in their book. It's not a heavy lift, but we do have some customers who are not assigned anymore and new customers joining for the scaled motion.
And the ones that are brought out of that scaled motion, out of your portfolio, they can still attend the webinars. Do you still send them emails? Hey, there's a webinar to get into some sort of a subscription list. How does that work?
They are routed to the digital success motion, which is the channels that Zendesk has, which includes the help center, the community, the support, our training center. As I built the relationship, and they are already in my outbound list of messages, they can join the sessions for the webinars and still be in touch with me, even if this account is not assigned anymore.
If you compare that to a regular customer success manager position, meaning either a strategic CSM or a mid-touch CSM or a digital CS, what are the differences that are coming up for you?
Yeah, so the differences are pretty much on the experience that we provide to customers. So if you look at a mid and high CSM, they are going to have around 15, depending on size, of course, but I saw CSMs like managing 5 accounts up to 20, 25, which I would say is a mid and high approach. These CSMs, they are kind of closer in terms of the relationship they build with that account, like more touch points in a bi-weekly basis, more meetings, deeper relationship. That's like the key difference. When we look at the portfolio customer success manager, we do have touch points with the accounts, but we have to be strategic on how many times we are meeting that account because I have a large book of business to cover. So if I'm talking to you today, I'm not going to be able to talk to you like in 15 days or even next month. So that's why we have to implement some strategies to scale given that my book of business is pretty large.
As a portfolio CSM, how do you know that you're doing your job well? What are you looking at?
I would say there are some metrics that we track to understand if a CSM is performing well. I think the high level idea is, are you meeting the right customer at the right time and having a meaningful conversation with them? When you have a portfolio of around 200 customers, it's quite easy to talk to customers that are out of your priority list. The priority list is the accounts you should be talking this quarter because of metrics saying we have a risk in terms of the renewal date is upcoming, or that account is not using all of their licenses, they are on a monthly term. So there are some indicators that we track to prioritize the accounts that I have to talk each quarter. So this is like the first metric that we track, meeting the right customer at the right time. There's additional metrics. For example, after an engagement, we usually capture the customer satisfaction survey after that engagement. So the customer tells us the perspective on that engagement. Was this useful for their business? There's also some lagging indicators, which is the churn contraction.
So obviously what it sounds like is that you have some portion of your role creating a high touch, a personal touch with those accounts, but some of your work is also done in a one-to-many motion, because otherwise 200, 250 accounts, that's a lot to be touching even every year, let alone every quarter or whatever the cadence is. So maybe you could tell me about what is it that you do that's more of a human touch? Obviously, you reach out to those that you prioritize either for risk, renewal, or opportunities for upsells. But what do you do at the high level motion? What separates a pooled model, I suppose, from a portfolio CSM is having that other layer of touch point that's one to many. Maybe you could break that portion of the job to us.
In our org, portfolio success managers, they have two key motions. The one-on-one engagements, which is the mid and high touch, where we have that one-on-one interaction. But very often, the customers, they want to meet with us more often. They want to kind of have a recurring meeting, and they have some questions that they reach out via email asking for another meeting. Because of that, we also need to have a place, which is like the second motion, around webinars. So we run a webinar series, the Portfolio Success Managers. This is an initiative that runs globally. So we have in all regions at Zendesk. We host biweekly or monthly sessions where customers can learn more about Zendesk in terms of different topics. But the idea is right after doing the one-on-one engagement, you present and introduce the webinar series for the customer. Because if they want to interact more with us, they have that channel.
Let's talk a little bit about what are the objectives of these two motions. So one, you have a call and probably like an email reach out or an email with the call. And the other one is the one to many, which is the webinar. For the emails or the calls that you actually have with them, it sounds like one goal that you have is to actually get them introduced to the webinar series. So get them involved in the webinars.
So during this one-on-one, we can have like one single touch or even two calls with that account. And if it's, for example, with two calls, the first one we usually do a discovery call, which is we try to collect pain points, what the customer's prioritizing for the next year or so. And then based on that scenario, we build a light success plan with suggestions on what customers can implement in terms to adopt our solution and drive better results. This is the main idea for the one-on-one engagements.
So adoption, discovery, and then get them involved in webinars. I feel like another objective for this, we know in customer success, we want to drive the experience and the relationship and the connection, like put a face to the name so that people feel like it's not just a tool that they have, they're actually working with people. And I feel like just that touch point moves them towards a sense of relationship with your brand. So I'm going to put another objective here to say it's not just to get them involved with the webinars, it's not just to uncover pain point priorities and give them a success plan and give them a recommendation. It's a sense of elevating the relationship and the loyalty to the brand and give them a higher CSAT, higher NPS score, and then see them adopting more. You talked about one of the reasons for the call is actually to mitigate risk. So if the utilization is lower and you had the disco call and you made some recommendation, we expect the utilization percentage to go and the cadence of the usage to go up. So I'm just going to write mitigate risk in general, not just to the contract, but also to contraction.
Yeah, absolutely.
What are the goals of the webinar? What kind of webinars do you do once they do get involved?
For the webinars, we have a work stream just to define which topics we're going to cover. This is decided in a global team meeting with the CS Live champions. So, what is a CS Live champion? CS Live champion is a portfolio customer success manager responsible to run the webinar series in your own region. So, imagine you are in a global organization and you are planning to implement this webinar series across different regions. You should have a point of contact in each region to run the program, join the meetings, do operational settings with the platform. That's the picture that I am talking about. So we have a CS Live champion for each region, and I was the CS Live champion for Latam over last year, pretty much. To the topics, we usually try to cover product updates, like what's new around our solutions, roadmap. We have some sessions around what's coming in terms of features, roundtable discussions, best practice for onboarding. These are all sessions that during the one-on-ones customers are usually asking for. So we can capture those insights in the one-on-one to feed the content strategy on the webinar piece. The availability, it depends on your resources. We portfolio CSMs, as we are delivering one-on-one engagements, it's the balance that we need to find. In Brazil, we are running twice per month. Some regions are doing this monthly. It depends on your resources and availability. And the attendance rate, I've been doing some tweaks in my region specifically that kind of drove attendance and attendees as well.
Here's what I'm picking up. With the one-to-many webinars, you're trying to get the engagement as high as possible because to me, it actually reinforces relationship in a one-to-many. They start to get to know you. If you're the one delivering all the webinars, it's another way to get to know you personally. It also helps increase adoption because, like you said, you're talking about product roadmap. So they get exposed to new features, use cases. You just went through the whole list of what kind of webinars you do with them. And it helps Zendesk lowers what we call cost to serve. Cost to serve meanings how much does it cost us to serve one account or a series of accounts? So we want to lower cost to serve. Usually, typically, we look at 6% as the cost of taking care of a customer. I think with this one-to-many, now you have to have less personal touch points so you can increase your CSM to account ratio by a lot, from 1 to 25 to 1 to 200 or 250. Do you feel like there's any other success indicators for the webinars or in general? How does Zendesk looks at this? What kind of metrics does Zendesk track to say, yeah, this webinar series is successful?
There is a component on adoption for sure, given that we are talking about the product, new features, etc. But also there is a great component on time savings for the portfolio customer success manager. Because just painting a picture here, imagine I just had a one-on-one conversation with a customer and we just started that relationship. And after 1 week or two, these customers that I met in my one-on-one engagements, they reach out sometimes asking for another meeting, asking questions, or curious to learn more about the product. As a portfolio, I have my priority list running the one-on-one engagements, and potentially that account who reached out is not on my list. So what we can do as a result is we have a channel where these customers can learn more about the product from us, from the portfolio customer success managers. And then we kind of build these two motions, the one-on-one, and then we have the bi-weekly sessions where customers join and learn more about the product.
I think this is one of the reasons why you actually count. How many customer sessions have I actually done, or is this the webinars?
Yeah, this slide is showing the impact over 2023. I was running the program in Latam, specifically in Brazil, with customers in my book of business, and we have been able to deliver 23 live sessions, on average 2 per month. If you see first line, around 200 registrations, attendance rate 50%, and each session we were having 16 customers and touching 113 unique accounts.
Because you had that touch point in a one-to-many, you kind of get the hours saved per quarter as well as per year pretty high. That's almost like unheard of.
Imagine if I had to meet these 113 unique accounts via one-on-one engagements.
So 50% attendance. What are your tips to getting that as high as it is? I would imagine if I'm a business and I want to start doing webinars for my customers, you give us a good idea of what kind of topics and what's the cadence like. How do you get so many of the accounts on your portfolio to attend?
I think there are two key ideas that I implemented that help to achieve this number. The first one is on the invitation strategy. So the key thing is making sure you are proactively inviting these customers to the webinar. In terms of the customer experience, when an account in my book of business, they have a one-on-one engagement with me, I present the CS Live, and also we talk about the account, the product, and all that stuff. And after 1 or 2 days, they got the email from me inviting them to join the webinar. So that message is hot and customers register. Differently from like just mentioning, here we have a link. If you want to join the webinar, there's a difference in terms of approaching the account that drove the number. And also, I would say there is a component on the experience during the webinar.
First and foremost, make sure the invitation is personal. Every time you have a conversation with one of your portfolio accounts, make sure that towards the end or in the right moment, you bring about the webinar series and extend a personal invitation. And then do that again via now that they know you, when the invitation comes from you, not some marketing email, then it's literally Vitor, which I talked to before, is inviting me to a session that he's doing. I like Vitor. I'm gonna come in and see what he's got. Got it. But there must be some things that you do during the session itself. You might come once because we like you, but if the session is not great, we might not come to the next one.
Perfect. And this is a question that I asked myself, how I could kind of boost the experience during the webinar. How could I have the highest engagement rate across the regions? In order to enhance the experience during the webinar, I was constantly asking myself, what are some tweaks that I can do during the webinar that would make customers ask themselves, I cannot join that session. So what I did was kind of creating a new webinar experience, including some facilitation skills to the session. So what does that mean? Instead of just speaking during the webinar, only the portfolio CSM delivering the content during that session, I included kind of a more conversational environment where customers could share their challenges, their perspectives. And we also had some group activities together during the webinar. Instead of just a webinar, it would look like more of a workshop. We would be able to create connections in that situation because customers, by leveraging breakout rooms, they could connect to each other. They would be able to share their challenges and hear from others, their strategies. And sometimes they don't want to hear from the portfolio. They want to hear from other customers.
From the portfolio success manager.
So, yeah, from me, exactly. So this is a kind of new webinar experience, which kind of enhanced how they felt when they left the session. I think that these two components, the invitation and the experience, helped to keep consistent on the 50% of attendance rate.
I think this is such an important key point to why you are a senior portfolio success manager, why they put you as a champion of your region, is because you do come from a very strong education program and can leverage what you've done in the past to bring it into this role and elevate the standard of what should a webinar like that look like, so that we can maximize value for customers that are attending that session and want to get the most out of it. What a brilliant move. Not everybody comes from an educational background. By the way, did you know that the number one profession that moves into customer success is like the most successful as a first time CSM are teachers? Teachers are doing great as CSMs. So I guess this is one of the reasons you just know how to take a person and take them through a journey and get that enrollment conversation. Can you make any kind of recommendations to, if I don't have a lot of experience on how to deliver a webinar in an interactive way, are there any trainings, podcasts, books? What do you recommend if I wanted to learn how to be Vitor when I grow up?
When I started doing these tweaks on the webinars at Zendesk, I used the background that I gained skills when I was serving an NGO called Fundação Estudar, which is an NGO here in Brazil, and they prepare young people for their careers. And back then, I was facilitating workshops for these students. So that's how I leveraged those facilitation skills. So if you are planning to run webinar series with a vibe of facilitation, I would say that you can think about your past experiences. Have you been able to do something around group discussions at NGOs or other backgrounds that you can kind of bring those skills to the webinars? And sometimes I see people that they have this background, but they just don't connect both things. So I think it's kind of connecting what you did in the past to what you are doing presently. And also, if you don't have any background on this sort of facilitation skills, you can start experimenting, testing in a small scale with your book of business, and then see the results.
If you're an executive listening to this podcast, when you're going to start this program for you, your first hire should be somebody like Vitor, somebody that knows how to do interactive workshops. And in fact, during the interview process, I would have them do a mock up workshop for 10, 15 minutes just to see this is the vibe you want. After that, they'll teach everybody else that comes along. But I feel like that's a winning skill right there.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. It's a plan for the future potentially.
Vito, wonderful conversation. Thank you so much for sharing what a portfolio customer success manager means. I've done a presentation with Salesforce a few years ago about portfolio CSMs, and it kind of took for a while. And then I haven't heard of portfolio CSMs anymore. And I thought, I guess the pooled CSM motion won. But I think this one is actually has a little bit more color to it. It has a bit more breadth. And I know SAP has a program like that as well, not necessarily as a portfolio CSM, but they do have product experts that drive these types of webinars. And I think that that's a fantastic idea. It was interesting to see what kind of skills thrives in this role. So I want to thank you so much for this. I learned so much, and it was absolutely delightful to speak with you today.
Thank you so much, Irit. It was a pleasure sharing my experience, my insights. If someone interested in learning more about scaled strategies, portfolio management, don't hesitate to reach out. I'm always open for a cup of coffee to discuss new ideas.
With that, everyone, if you love this video and you want to root for Brazil and all their beautiful, talented, smart customer success people, give this video a like. Vitor is one of many Brazilian customer success professionals, and every one of them is top notch. This country produces abundance of talent, let me tell you. So thank you so much, Vitor. The pleasure was all mine. Give this video a like, subscribe to our channel, and I'll see you on the next video.